session, Maletí, Medico, How to Design and Adopt an OER Textbook, presented by Giovanni Zamati and Alexis Jimenez. My name is Derek Malone, and I will be the moderator for this session. I am joined by Natalie Hill. I will be monitoring the chat for questions, and Natalie will be available to help you if you have any technical questions. We ask that everyone in this session adhere to the OESS Code of Conduct. I'll place a link to that Code of Conduct in the chat, but want to emphasize a few things before we begin. The Open Education Southern Symposium, OESS, strives to offer an open, inclusive, and friendly environment for all participants. All attendees are expected to help maintain a professional and welcoming environment free of any type of harassment. Together, we can create a space where individuals feel free to express themselves, work together, and come up with solutions to today's unique challenges. The organizers of OESS appreciate your help in making this symposium a friendly and welcoming virtual experience. Please note that all sessions are being recorded. I'll place a link to that in the chat. And with that, presenters, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Derek, for your introduction. It is a pleasure for us to be at the Open Education Southern Symposium. I got my PhD at the University of Alabama, so I spent 5 or 6 years in the South, and I really enjoyed my time there. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we started designing this textbook and our process there, so that we can we're going to show you what we did, but we also want to show people how to do it. It's not that hard to design an OER textbook, and we want to push more people to do it. So this is us. I direct the Spanish language program at the University of Iowa, and Alexis also works at the University of Iowa. So, and yes, a lot of expertise in the medical field with teaching Spanish in the medical field with interpreting and teaching healthcare classes. So the first thing that you have to do when you want to design an OER textbook, in our opinion, is identify your students' needs. What are their interests? Why are they going to take this class? So that you can start designing this book from a backward design. Start creating the learning objectives based on your students' need. And for example, for us was a class for students that have an interest or want to study to be healthcare professionals. And also they need to learn language skills that are similar to students taking the same class, but with a different focus. So this is like a 4th semester general education Spanish class. It's part of the general education language requirement at the University of Iowa. So 4th semester is like an intermediate, mid-level intermediate Spanish. Also, you're a professor, so you need to identify your needs. In our case, 4th semester, student-centered. That's the way we teach at the University of Iowa Spanish. And also, we wanted a class that was easy to teach. Easy to teach because sometimes I will be teaching this class, other times Alexis, but most likely a TA will be teaching this class. So we want a class that is as easy as possible to be taught. And also the modality of the class, we follow a hybrid flipped modality where the students learn a lot of grammar before coming to class, and then during class, they are communicating a lot in Spanish. So it was important for our book to follow this teaching modality.
Hello, I'm Alexis. Thank you for being here in this presentation. So I'm going to talk about the variety of textbooks that dealt with Spanish for healthcare professionals that were available when we started thinking about this. The first one, well, there are a couple of them, but we found different issues with them. And for example, Salud is one of the ones I've been teaching Spanish for specific purposes, and health has been the one that I've done the most. And for example, Salud was the one that was being used at the University of Iowa and at a previous university that I was at. And first, the textbook was very, very basic in the subjects that it was teaching. Also, super boring, black and white. the website that was the companion was also very basic, had a lot of glitches, was not being updated. And finally, it actually was stopped being supported by the Pearson publisher. So we were left without just the paper copy of the textbook. So it was one of the instances where we started thinking, what could we do? The other textbooks, the Spanish for Healthcare, second edition, Basic Spanish for Medical Personnel, A Su Salud, and Spanish Medical Professionals with Essential Questions and Responses, were all very basic in the content they have. The grammar started from the very beginning. The vocabulary was from the very beginning. So we were really not satisfied with what it was being covered and how it was presented to the students. And also, there was not enough updates to keep up with the needs that our students have in the society that we live in, that is so diverse, specifically serving the Spanish-speaking population that are the patients that these students are going to be working with. So it's important to say this is part of the what's so good about OER is that we did not have to start from scratch. Dr. Giovanni Simodi had already created Salón de Clase, which is Spanish for intermediate education professionals. And starting from that text, we could take from it and adapt content to our Maletí Medico textbook. So this is what's essential, sharing and remixing, that we can take from what we already have. We don't have to start from scratch and then create content specific for the new textbook at the same time. And of course, he already had experience of how to do this. So this is what we created. It is still in beta version. We're still having it reviewed. There's still things that have to be changed, modified, and stuff, but it is already being in use in multiple universities. So Maletí Medico was created starting from the text you saw before, and we specifically created it thinking of our students who want to be in the health professions and think of the cultural and social things they need to be aware of through the use of Spanish and learning Spanish. So this is an intermediate level text. So how do we divide the content? We have thematic modules. We have 4. These that you're seeing here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These pictures and these titles are the main, let's say, titles. They are samples, but each module has different sections, A, B, and C. Some of them have A, B, and C, and D. Module 1, for example, we took from Salón de Clase, the previous textbook. And here we are dealing with the Spanish speakers living in the US. Why? Because they are going to be the patients that our students are going to be working with. So there's a lot of information, social, political, different backgrounds, history of their families coming to the US, their heritages and things that are very important for health professionals and that they should know about. So we took that from Salón de Clase. Then we have module 2, where we deal with cultural things and also the diet, the digestive system, the future of food, what's right now being thought, what are the best diets, how to stay healthy, and also what are the challenges of the specific to the Hispanic population in terms of the diet, exercise, what kind of foods are we used to, more, how can we have a healthy life, respecting our cultural foods, our backgrounds, etc., etc. On module 3, we went to cover the clinical encounter. So here we dealt with a lot of things pertaining to how to deal specifically with Spanish-speaking patients. What are the steps in the clinical encounter? What should be expected? What our students should be ready to do, to look for, to ask about when working with Spanish-speaking patients. It's a constant in these modules, culture and heritage that health professionals need to have, obviously for Spanish-speaking patients, that is regularly covered for any other diverse population of patients. And module 4, we talk about the brain, we talk about psychology, we talk about inclusivity. Also, we deal with what are the Latino patient health attitudes and practices that different generations of Spanish-speaking immigrants have in the US, depending on what the generation they come from, what country they come from, what were the circumstances they have to face, what are their practices in terms of natural health, natural remedies, how should our students deal with using Western medicine and at the same time traditional medicine that these patients may use also at home. So this is very, very, it goes in detail in how to deal with these types of medicines, and at the same time, we're of course reviewing vocabulary, things they don't know, things that are specific to every country, and also the grammar.
Okay, so moving on to the guiding principles. This was an easy part for us because this was an adaptation of another textbook. So we followed some of those guiding principles, and I'm gonna talk, I already mentioned before the backward design. We start them from the learning objectives, and then we created the content. In this case, we had two different types of learning objectives. There were the language learning objectives, so the level of Spanish we wanted the students to have when they were leaving this class. And then there were all the healthcare related learning objective. What did we want to teach them about healthcare that could help them succeed in their career in the futures? Then we had other, like we wanted to use authentic resources. So for this, we had as many Latino people as possible to provide video, audio interviews, documents that were related to, like, we try to focus mostly on people already living in the US because this is the type of population our students will encounter. We also wanted to have as many communicative activities as possible because this is the model we are teaching at our university. So we have this hybrid model where students are focused on the meaning and they're learning by speaking in Spanish while they're in class. We also wanted to include a lot of real world tasks, so some sort of like simulations of what they're doing in the classroom, and I will show you a few examples for some of those. We also wanted to make a book that is accessible to as many students as possible. We always deal with students with disability that they need subtitles for the videos, alternative images, and if you keep this in mind when you start designing a textbook, it's gonna be so much easier than going back and creating all the subtitles for the videos and all the alternative description for the images. Also, as formative assessment, we wanted to follow the same model we follow in our program. So task-based projects. So instead of doing some more formal assessment like exam, we prefer to have practical assessments where students complete one task at a time to create a full assignment. I'm going to answer the question about why the title in English, but all the content in Spanish. So this is part of a sequence of like 4 levels of Spanish. When we start in the first semester where students do not have any level of Spanish, most of the description are in English, and then we try to transition them towards all Spanish. That's why this book is only in Spanish. We decided to use an English title just for convenience. The target market for this textbook is the United States. Library, bookstores, they need to carry these textbooks. So we wanted to have an English title so that it's easier for everyone to understand it. It's just like it follows the sequence, and it was just that. So here, for example, we have a project 3, medical history. So this is a task-based project, a formative assessment. It just starts with the students answering some comprehension question to get into the topic. Basically, they were taking a medical history of a patient at the end. Then we got a video of a nurse in Spanish asking questions about a medical history. So taking a medical history, and then they progress, they create their own questions up until the point where in group, they simulate an interaction between a patient and a medical professional taking a medical history. And then at the end, they record their interaction, and then the professor can grade this assessment. We also have other like simulations. So we created a fake hospital because we didn't want to use anything specific for a certain region, but we got, like, for example, this is like an intake form in Spanish for a patient so that they can get used to like a lot of like disease and names and like vocabulary and sentences that they will be using in their profession. We also had a lot of communicative activities that they were building from a dialogue. And this is like, we found that it was easier for us if we just wanted to add audio to just put it on YouTube just for simplicity and put a picture on there. And then from that audio interview or audio, this is like a dialogue between a doctor and a patient, they build up and in the chapter, they get more activities and more activities related to that. We also added a lot of like infographics created by us so that to make the book more engaging for them. It was also important to present the cultural aspect of the Latino patients because this is like a minority population in the United States that they're going to be interacting with. So they might have different traditions, especially in the older generations. There are also some sort of protocols that medical professionals should use when interacting with them. So we wanted to present them with all the options for when they will be in their profession. And then we also, an important thing was not to present the grammar as a straight grammar, but present the grammar more like in an implicit way. And those are like some example, like they start, for example, in the first one, we introduce the subjunctive. In the number 14 also is about the subjunctive that is usually a very complicated topic, but we introduce it first by showing it to them. And then after 3 or 4 activities, students can actually produce the subjunctive. So we will go from input to output at the end.
Okay, now we're going to talk about what we learned, what experiences we had creating this text and what challenges we faced. Because every time I think we embark in one of these type of projects, we're going to face challenges and things that we didn't know we were going to face and then encounter. So first of all, one of the things is that we had to find healthcare professionals willing to provide their time helping us checking the content, checking we were being accurate, because of course we're not health doctors, so we needed someone to help us review the content, and at the same time having people that are language teaching experts that could review that, and at the same also if the healthcare professionals could be bilingual would be great, so when they look at the content they can tell what's happening. Because it takes longer if they do not speak Spanish, to be able to review content because they have more questions and so on and so forth. It is very difficult to find experts in the health field that have the time. It's not that they're not willing to, but they are really busy people. So, this is unpaid work. It's just sort of a volunteering effort to help future health professionals that are learning Spanish to serve that community. And it can be a challenge. Here in Iowa, in the University of Iowa, we have clinics and we have health professionals that we could kind of vet and ask if they could help us, but it is difficult to find. Then it's important, and as I said before, the principle of OER is to share and remixing the materials, the contents, the textbooks. And we're going to face also challenges here. We have found them. We have different versions of the text. And for example, one of the things we encountered is that if we copy all the H5P activities, they do not actually copy. So we have to go back and relink every activity back to the new version of the text we're going to have. It is impossible to easily take just one section of a textbook and copy it to another. There's always going to be some sort of glitch or some sort of modification that has to be made. Sometimes the format of things does not work properly, and sometimes we don't know why. We have to figure it out, just testing, trial and failing till it works. So that's very time consuming. Sharing ancillary materials with other universities, it's one of our goals, that be able to build this community where we are creating these resources that can be shared across universities and helping everyone's students to succeed. And these principles are key to us, and that's one of our main goals in creating this textbook. I mentioned time consuming. We did receive a little grant to create this text, but there's a lot of unpaid work and time consumed besides our daily jobs, that we are teaching and you know, we're always working. It's not a job that ends at 5 p.m. So we're always prepping, grading, planning, answering emails, and all the responsibilities we already have. And having a project like this, it is time consuming, and it needs constant updating, fixing. You can, you know, one of the beautiful things about this OER project is you can modify things quickly. If you want to change something in the text, for example, you can. But also, if you have to be constantly doing that, it takes also time, you know. And you need a very varied set of skills when you're working in a project like this. For example, we had to find articles about certain subjects and then modify them, rewrite them, paraphrasing. We also have original content that we have written for this text, and then create activities. Before using writing content, we have some activities that are done before and after, comprehension, etc. Then we have to proofread it, edit it, make sure everyone understands everything, you know, accents and things like that. On the other hand, when we have audiovisual materials, you need equipment, you need the software, you need the hardware, you need the ability to know how to edit the video, make checking light, sound, things like that, creating images. Dr. Simodi is really good at creating images and infographics, and that helped a lot. But if he didn't have that ability, you know, we'll have to find someone to do that for us. And as I said, for example, we don't have a lot of money to be able to pay people to do that for us. So you have to start digging into learning how to do a lot of different things. Also, you have to learn about licenses, what things you can share, what things you can use, what things you cannot use, how far can you get inspiration from the different materials that you see online, things like that. The advantages, it's relatively easy to fix mistakes. It's easy to decide about the content. If you want to fix an activity, if you want to fix a content, if you want to change something, if there's an article that we used or information that we used that, you know, is outdated, you can easily change it. It's less bureaucratic. You don't have to be calling a big publisher and asking their IT team to please take your case and have a ticket number and hope that that's going to happen in the next 3-4 months. You can go ahead and do it yourself. You can adapt the material and the content reflecting social and cultural contexts where you are teaching. You know, let's say you are in Florida, you're in Miami, or you are in Texas, or you are in Denver, and the Hispanic population, they're going to be the patients of our students, have very specific sociocultural things that we want to highlight. You can do that. You can create a specific activities using a specific vocabulary or sociocultural values or experiences or knowledge they have specifically in that culture, you know, in that segment of the Hispanic population. In my experience of piloting this textbook, my students loved it. They really liked it because they feel it's very interactive to them. It's not, they just, first of all, they love, they don't have to pay money for it. You know, it's the first thing they smile about. Because before they have had to pay for textbooks that maybe they won't use everything. And as I said, I mentioned before, all the things that we didn't like about the other textbooks. So they love that part, but also they have loved the experience. They love to be able to use it on their devices or older mobile devices, and that everything, you know, it's what they are experiencing now in their lives, which is interactive, visual, audiovisual. And we try to include many things. For example, in one of the chapters, we use YouTube videos from YouTube creators that talk about food and in popular markets in Mexico, and how now the future may be using proteins, insects for protein intake and things like that. So they really like that, and they have expressed that to me. So it is very nice, and I think they are enjoying and embracing this experience, you know, because they also know that they can give us feedback. You know, what did you like? What you didn't like? What would you like us to add? And we can do it easily.
So from what we learned from this project, just moving forward, just a quick thing about what we're trying to do right now. Starting from this, we were thinking about using those VR training videos that we wanted to create about English-Spanish medical interpretation, but then we realized the level was too advanced for the students of this class. So this became a separate project where we are creating those videos. Some are already available on YouTube. I'm also trying to adapt the two textbooks mentioned in this presentation with multiple authors from different parts of the United States to create a more general textbook for intermediate Spanish, the 4th level. And we are trying to work on, the goal is to have OER textbook for all levels of the Spanish basic program at Iowa. And that will result in a saving of like $300,000, $400,000 per academic year for our students. So we hope to reach that in a few years. And I think we are out of time. So if you have some questions, I will check the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, we have 5 minutes left. If anyone has any quick questions?
Yeah, and if I saw that all of you already, some of you mentioned that you emailed your Spanish teams at your universities. Let them know that if they have questions, they can contact us. We're available. We also have, so right now, one of the challenges of OER is having some sort of like place, because most of, like, especially for Spanish, most of the program are hybrid. So we have like an online homework platform that usually is like created by the publishers and paid by the students. So our solution right now, we have created all the quizzes in Canvas. So for example, last semester, the University of Nebraska was using our textbook, and we shared with them the Canvas folder. It's not the most elegant or easier solution, but we shared the folder with all the weekly quizzes for grammar and the vocabulary quizzes, so that their students could also do some homework without the faculty rewriting all the quizzes from scratch.